places y'all need to be down with the Underworld team. Join the movement. Let's go.
Get 'em! This your boy Mac reppin' 304 Dub V, baby. Get 'em squad, GS all day. And when I want to listen to real hip-hop, I tune into Underworld Radio and hang out with my boy o.stylez, the JFK and Jers, and all my Law fans. Get 'em!
Yeah, what's good, man? It's D.R.E. the Realest MC, CEO of the Real Entertainment. Shout it out to my man, o.stylez, the underground pioneer. Holding it down for Underworld and Underground ENT for this one day.
Yo, you should do Crisis. Giving much love, much respect, and much love to my bro, the pioneer.
Commotion is definitely the next wave. Let's get it, y'all. Let's go.
Yo, Sticky the o.stylez, what up? Underworld. LaCar BYOB. Stanhope House. Cooler Cafe, Conscious Youth, Danny Clinch in Asbury Park. Farmer Boys. First Famine. Supreme Alliance. I appreciate all y'all for putting me on.
Underworld.
Shout out to Rel. Buzz in the South Jersey Cyphers, what up? But how come I ain't never get put on the Jersey Fresh Jam or Art All Nighter, the Marsden House Cyphers and all that? How come you ain't put me on?
Yeah.
What up? I know y'all see me. I be in y'all town, man. What's good?
Let them know how
I don't get it. It's like I'm knee deep in freedom of speech, freedom of weep. It's easy to creep, count sheep in your sleep. It's, nah, man. I ain't gonna do that.
You can get them.
It's like I think they kind of scared. It's like
they scared of you, bro. Let them know what they do.
You need to. I don't know, man. It's like
I need you to talk.
It's like you lock your bars before they can break out. Shoot back a paparazzi and call that media takeout. So who's next to catch this tongue lash in front of the city where even kitties stick you for gun stashes? Smoked up, knocked off, blown away, blunt ashes. Let's see who can run fastest. Head of the street, fam, running with the best. You the end of the week, man. WTF? 3X banging in your cipher, time's overdue. If I rhyme over you, here's my rhyme overview. What commotion spew, mostly roasting and toasting you. Many y'all call commotions leading a chosen few. Kinetic energy flow with a century. Freeze MCs like mad MP3s on PCs. You be killing your memory mentally, not a word to think. Razor sharpen your pencil, punish you with the pad and pen. Then I just murder the ink. No more silence, just violence, sirens, sad music, violence. Don't believe me, then try it, then get your goonies to hire men. Meet the Trenton version of Murder 1. Bite a pen, hobnob with goblins. Maybe it's Leviathan, inciting the rioting. Well, come on, invite him then. I'll be ready to fight with them. So I built myself up, chewing on these one-word punchlines. Vitamin. So what this tyrant is trying to insinuate that I'm watching disintegrate right from my dinner plate. Principle of the matter is I'm here to administrate the abolition of mainstream. Time to integrate, lyrically renovate, innovating the best weapons. Commotion putting words together is a death sentence. You can't call me out from dead zones. Go to your cemetery and urinate from the headstones. I get it, headstones. If I ain't dead homes, there's a resurrection of real rap in your headphones. Kill.
Yes.
Oh man, o.stylez, bro, I think they scared, man.
They scared of you.
I know y'all see me going city to city. I be in your city, y'all didn't even invite me to your cypher or to your show. It's all good.
Real talk.
It's just little old Q. I mean, I'm a humble dude. I mean, I just spit from the heart. I show love, man. I don't know, man. I give credit where credit is due, man. Y'all don't see me out with the whole fresh flow camp and all that much. I just mostly roll dolo. Y'all ain't scared, are you? I mean, it's not like I'll out-rhyme you or anything. It's like, would I really out-rhyme you and your whole team? Well, on second thought, maybe you should be scared. Chill.
Coming to you live for Underworld Radio. It's your boy Sticky the o.stylez. Live for Commotion, Fresh Flow ENT. Y'all scared, man. Let's go.
Like a pharaoh to the queen when they made love. The king born to show the world what I made of. Best of the best, yes. Even when I'm at my worse. Killing time, killing every beat, killing every rhyme, killing every line.
Die first.
I'm a star when I spit these bars. I go so hard, I hate leaving. Praise God that I'm on my job, cause I be in the eyes and I break even. Wanna feel but don't feel my hunger. Ice grill wanna steal my thunder. Tryna rain in my parade, but operating your rain with a big umbrella. Ella. When you wanna cause pain to somebody doing things that you wanna be a part of. But you can't, so you raving, you ran at any given chance instead of working harder. I being smarter. Yeah, I'm staying in my lane, doing my thing and trying to break through. Yeah, I'm changing the game, but I'm staying the same. When you was hitting, I didn't hate you. Everybody crying, but they come to the big time. Don't wanna grind, and they want some of this shine. Barely got a dime, every some of them is fine. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna get mine. Everybody crying, but they come for the big time. Don't wanna grind, and they want some of this shine. Barely got a dime, every some of them is fine. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna get mine. I take it and run with it, that's how I ball. Hogging these shots, that's what I call. Going Kobe on y'all, yeah, I'm driving in the lane. Beat, now I can stand the rain. He hard. Wanna see me fall, but you see me leaving y'all in the dust. Caused me to cuss. The regulator dropped the bomb and I'm the detonator. Going up the escalator, dropped the bomb and y'all are hella haters. When fall came and y'all knew it, blew it. Talk big dreams, but you still didn't do it. I believe you can achieve it, but if you really mean it, then you live and breathe it. Till then I believe it when I see it. You watch things happen, great things happen. You wonder what happened, I made things happen. I'm the head of the street fan, running with the best. You the end of the week, man, WTF. Everybody crying, but they come for the big time. Don't wanna grind, and they want some of this shine. Barely got a dime, every some of them is fine. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna get mine. Everybody crying, but they come for the big time. Don't wanna grind, and they want some of this shine. Barely got a dime, every some of them is fine. I don't know about you. Round and around, you be turning me, you're spurring me, you're burning me. To do a big for eternity, but ain't no hurting me, and no diverting me from my goals and aspirations. Negative thoughts out of my concentration. Focus, man, on my future success. Good brothers all vexed and distressed by the skills I'm obsessed with a mess. I confess, I wanna be a model, of course I'm a scholar. Entrepreneur, your father, pocket more of my daughters. Watch it about it with the thought of it demise. They try to bring me down, but still I arise, recognize. Stacking up tricks to go wide, surprise. Got a gleam in my eyes, $1 million dream and realize. Right, for both my sons now on the run, just to be second to none, the number one. If you get mad, I don't care. Stay down in the barrel that y'all crap share. Kiss the dairy air of an MC square. Debonair, legendary scorer like Jordan in the air. Yeah, everybody crying, but they come for the big time. Don't wanna grind, and they want some of this shine. Barely got a dime, every some of them is fine. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna get mine. Everybody crying, but they come for the big time. Don't wanna grind, and they want some of this shine. Barely got a dime, every some of them is fine. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna get mine.
Coast to coast world.
The new age of hip hop, pop.
We got smoke to give and we give it for free. Bags in and they in for the cheap. I ain't finna lay up with no freak. I'm hitting that hoe and I leave. Street nigga, I'm pulling out weaves. Fuck at the gang, they was sleeping on me. Block 19, I keep it on me. Reach at me wrong and we put him to sleep. Get him out of here. We ride wise in the Jeep. Me, Glock, Ron, and Reek. I'm fucking up back ends at the mall. I'm spending racks on sneaks. Knock him off the map, delete. Can't have a feast, I tell him to eat. I'm on my way and I ain't reached the peak. That little nigga hot like Texas Pete. Yeah. Hot. I make your salary every week. Cash. I'm in the hills, Beverly. She wanna fuck, let's schedule it. I have a hoe wanna marry me. He say he want smoke, we bury him. Gang on my back, let him. Yeah, these niggas cat like fairy tale. Bitch, I'm good everywhere.
Fuck what you thought, we got big guns. Ride with that Glock, no cap gun. Put that to your head if you owe some. Then pull up on Stunner and smoke one. I got a plug if you need one, cause my niggas moving the whole boat. I got a bitch in a Nissan, I'm finna fuck up that whole throat. Niggas won't smoke, then I'm bringing the chimney. Don't know gymnastics, but might used to send me. This clip extended with alternate endings. Run up a check, I don't never get winded. Niggas can't see me, the windows is tinted. Scoop up your bitch in the motherfucking building. You out of line and I put you back in it. I bought a strap just to match with the Fendi.
We got smoke to give and we give it for free. Bags in and they in for the cheap. I ain't finna lay up with no freak. I'm hitting that hoe and I leave. Street nigga, I'm pulling out weaves. Fuck at the gang, they was sleeping on me. Block 19, I keep it on me. Reach at me wrong and we put him to sleep. Get him out of here. We got smoke to give and we give it for free. Bags in and they in for the cheap. I ain't finna lay up with no freak. I'm hitting that hoe and I leave. Street nigga, I'm pulling out weaves. Fuck at the gang, they was sleeping on me. Block 19, I keep it on me. Reach at me wrong and we put him to sleep. Get him out of here.
Bats coming in from the west side while I'm beating your bitch from the backside. I tell her open the mouth wide, she take a hit like the front line. Put him to sleep, it's bedtime. That chopper sing nothing but lullabies. Real nigga, I'm not the mother guys. I fuck a bitch out of panty line. Right out of I want that head, cat scan. She let me fuck, no lap dance. That pussy tight like a wristband. Pass that to my nigga like Steve Nash. I'm fucking bitches in Calabasas. Mail back to work, can't forget your package. Got it for 12, sell it for 21. Ooh, y'all niggas savage.
We got smoke to give and we give it for free. Bags in and they in for the cheap. I ain't finna lay out with no freak. I'm hitting that hoe and I leave. Street nigga, I'm pulling out weave. Fucked at the gang, they was sleeping on me. About 19, I keep it on me. Reach at me wrong and we put them to sleep. Get them out of here. We got smoke to give and we give it for free. Bags in and they in for the cheap. I ain't finna lay out with no freak. I'm hitting that hoe and I leave. Street nigga, I'm pulling out weave. Fucked at the gang, they was sleeping on me. About 19, I keep it on me. Reach at me wrong and we put them to sleep. Get them out of here.
Niggas never gave me shit, I scream fuck em. Try to play a low-key nigga but never duck em. Talk behind your back to your face, they say you're nothing. Here's your application, bitch niggas check off frontin'. Plus when you down, them fools they never round. But a wise man once said even the circus got clowns. So I'ma do what I do with the flow to the fresh. With the E to the nest, staying fresh to my death. Niggas love to see you down and out for the count. Hey, when a nigga go to 12 rounds, application denied. Friend to respond, my application is for murder. I see that you check die. You won't make it to the interview. Better yet, the sitting room. Stupid motherfucker, can't you see what I am getting to? Your app is trash. Your shit is played. Next time you fill it out, nigga, send a resume.
I got a hater's application, you should fill it out. Once you apply, then you approve, you can chill it out. I grab a Pyrex potter, whip a skillet out. You withholding info, I make you spill it out. So many hoes caught the vapors on Judgment Day. And niggas try and count the money I got tucked away. If I pop another bottle, I need double let. So I can give a rat's ass what a sucker said. You guilty by association, you should fill it out. Niggas shoot so many bricks, they could build a house. They should bury all informers, let the killers out. Legal with blind to write rhymes, you can fill it out. I'm with the fresh flow gang on 54th Street. I met him at the Cav game, it was floor seats. The west side of Washington up the northeast. We turning all you cornballs into corned beef.
You need a hater's application.
You should fill it out.
And customer fees and registration.
You should fill it out.
And when you want the real plays in the field, what's the deal? Got an expert in the pill.
You should fill it out.
You need some numbers for your show.
You should fill it out.
Your funds are coming kinda slow.
You should fill it out.
And for the thirsty heads who gon' turn their heads, you wanna know what the survey says.
You should fill it out.
Sneaker King on deck, move to being made connected with Ines. Car go down the highway, exit 7-8, phone posit King, hologram how I play. Mr. Bacon on deck, doing it my way. Fresh with the flow, Gil Buster all day. Black entrepreneurs got the haters saute. Red carpet SK, that's how they walk me. Trenton in the building, Nev Day off me. Hustle hard, black bottle boys, epic movie. Black models at the W, bubble jacuzzi. Shining on these ducks, soft as a smoothie. Money getter since Bill Cosby wearing the Coochie. Whack niggas make me unruly. Nah, we ain't cool, you fake pops ain't raised no fool. I've been on my grind, destined to receive what's mine. Violate if you cross that line, Christopher Reeve your spine. Smoking on that fine, straight island vine. Test me, you must be out of your mind. Make it hard for you day and nighttime.
You out of fresh hot Loch Ness?
Bring the dealers out.
Promo for the go-go to the ho-go.
You can fill it out.
You can't deny we the realest out when we chillin' out.
You need a permit for the flow.
You should fill it out.
I've been a student of the game, learned some lessons there. Wanna know my thoughts, dude? I've been filled out the questionnaire. Worked at MTV, BET.
How you getting there?
Putty tat haters get testy.
Couldn't get a pair.
Top floor of Hollywood stores, yeah, it's a mess in there. Fresh flow and that's no this game, it ain't never fair. Rappers running out of they life savings to come inside. Gotta act,
Fill it out right.
we are the ones denied. Sneak this or being wagon, now you wanna ride. Money wise, all funny guys, yoked up sunny side. Your funds are dry, you always asking for help with it. Can't check the man in the mirror using a selfie stick. I never doubt what you really bout in the interview. When in a drought, how you deal reveals the inner you. 360 deal is out, went to indie route, so fresh flow for hiring out.
You should fill it out.
You need a hater's application.
You should fill it out.
And customer fees and registration.
You should fill it out.
And when you want the real plays in the field, what's the deal? Got an expert in the pill.
You should fill it out.
You need some numbers for your show.
You should fill it out.
Your funds are coming kinda slow.
You should fill it out.
And for the thirsty heads who gon' turn their heads, you wanna know what the survey says.
You should fill it out.
They don't want no beef.
Keep them screaming, what's up? Keep them screaming, what's up? Keep them screaming, what's up?
Don't want no beef.
To the world,
no beef. No beef. Oh, I bet you they run. Bet you they run.
What's up?
When it comes to that smoking, they don't want no beef. What's up? No beef. No beef. Oh, I bet you they run. Bet you they run. When it comes to that smoke,
I get it poppin' in the hood. That tough talk, save it. Keep acting like a life until you meet with David. Go ahead and let that beast come out. I be the one to tame it. These niggas talking that money, I be the one to change it. So get your frame hit, rearrange quick. These niggas just pulling out guns. Now watch me bang it. Know I can switch up my style while y'all on the same shit. The shell, shed blue scout, head and shoulders getting lit. No, you can die by the gun or the blade. Take your pick, I'm the shit. Make you disappear, that's the magic trick. Disrespect, I'm not having it. Got no respect when you dealing with these savages. Body get destroyed, not deployed on my rabbit shit.
Oh, I bet you they run, bet you they run. When it comes to that smoking, they don't want no beef. No beef, no beef. Oh, I bet you they run, bet you they run. When it comes to that smoking, they don't want no beef. No beef, no beef. Oh, I bet you they run, bet you they run. When it comes to that smoke,
nigga, you can get it on any given Sunday. Kidnapped on a Friday, dropped off on a Monday. Body parts chopped up, spread out on the one way. My knife game sharp, but my niggas bout that gunplay. With disrespect, a shot to the chest, that'll be your last day. A hitter, go get her. So I hunt in a fast way. Never been on the block, I get money to ski mass way. Put this chrome straight to your disc and put fast play. 100 gang up in this bitch, it get nasty. Headshot will take you to the throat, it get raspy. Bitch niggas pussy, they pussy. If you ask me, bust off, I'm making it rain, that's how I blast.
They don't want no beef. Oh, I bet you they run, bet you they run. When it comes to that smoking, they don't want no beef. No beef, no beef. Oh, I bet you they run, bet you they run. When it comes to that smoking, they don't want no beef. No beef, no beef. Oh, I bet you they run, bet you they run. World blow. When it comes to that smoke, the world blow.
Underworld. Major hip hop, pop, pop.
Ain't ballin', spalding. You niggas just flossin', talking. Seen a real boss when I walked in. Caution, I'm feeling dead fresh like I stepped out of coffin. I don't pay for it, it's gon' cost him. I fuck her real good, then I lost her. Tossed her. Been a couple years, think I met her out in Austin. Still to the day, she think a motherfucker awesome. You niggas ain't ballin'.
Look, Lord bless me, shit, I think I need some holy water. Niggas ain't hit me in a while. Damn, he going harder. I dipped you in my world now. Show me consideration. She takes me to my phone like, boy, your dick amazing. Fuck these niggas, let them die. That's what you get for hating. Shoebox full of money, boy, I get the cake. My bitch ass big from the back, she look Jamaican. Smoking dick stone, boy, I'm something like a mason. I hear you talking, but can't see you, nigga. Stevie Wonder, bring the thunder. Your bitch call my phone, bring a number. Hold of a lion, I ain't lying. I'm just stating facts. I'm from a city where there's snakes and some niggas rats. Got it out the mud. I ain't had no pot to piss it. Me, myself, and I, we don't want your proposition. Went to jail 30 minutes. My bitch bound me out. For a nigga. with the cannon. I'm wildin' out. Young niggas, you are not alone. I feel your pain. I remember I was broke, jacking everything. I'm from a block where it was hot. It don't never rain. Now these niggas turn pussy. Man, ain't that a shame? Feel my pain, but you can't, cause we are not the same. You's a bitch, you're drunk driving. Stay up in your lane. I'm the shit. I'm done rhyming. I'm just giving game. Move my family on the island. I'm on some different things. 40 with the dick. Call that bitch transgender. Next tattoo on my back gon' say cash getter. You trash, nigga. Left you in the past, nigga. I'ma help your pussy ass and wrap you in this bag, nigga. Shit is easy. Heard the tough talk. Wait, where you at? I'm about to go. T-Tucker, boy. Get the gang. Matter of fact, Christmas presents. Hey, this shit's a rap. Small gun, big clip. Mix it.
When I'm writing, I'm in my prime. And I'm always on set. A bad bitch, she a dime. But I put that on my set. That's the 5-minute line. I put my green jacket on. Now it's time to go grind. All I need is the code, the location of the crime. Knife in your stomach, different location of my 9. And the pain I'm gonna give is a pain you can't define. Have you regret in your life? Trying to put it in rewind. I had you look into the sky. Young God, give me a sign. Make trends like I'm ancient. Old trees creating vines. What I mean is I'ma eat, succeed at any time. Dig the dirt you under the world, and the world they can't find.
They calling me Cold Hardy. Maybe I'm Cold Hardy. They calling me Cold Hardy. Maybe I'm
Catch you slipping like Ricky. Sawed off double barrel, big shells hit the bone in. You can see the marrow cold hearted on the throne, but you can see a furrow 4-5 all grown breeds. And I don't deal with a saint, but you can't play in my dome. I'm Gucci, you not Gucci, I don't deal with clones. And I don't take no disrespect, that's invasion of homes. 100 boys, my suggestion is you sleep alone. And there's no negotiation, so don't answer the phone. Guilty by association, you get charged alone. I keep shooting your head until your brains is gone. Snakes can't live in my grass, I just cut the lawn. And I'm a dawn, I can't eat, you can't eat, unless you eat off my palm. Southpaw, Northpaw, I keep changing my phone. Strong arm, get strong on, without lifting my arm. I'm a dawn, play your pawn, or you can play like a pawn.
They calling me Cold Hardy. Maybe I'm Cold Hardy. They calling me Cold Hardy. Maybe I'm Cold Hardy.
Hard work pays off, I gotta get it, I'm in my prime. You get in my way and catch this nickel, then it's dime. I treat your body like a love seat, the pistol make it recline. It's been a long time coming, niggas wasting my time. I came back with more force, made niggas resign. Niggas back and you was pussy, I gave niggas the spine. Now you wanna disrespect, I'm raging to get mine. Make sure the bullets come in 3, shoot amazing from the line. Give you 5, there's no grazing, I always cross the line, easy one. Why you don't believe me, son? I'll beat you with my hands and I don't even need the gun. You know what it is, my hunters, they don't need to come. I get the weaving and leaning when I'm squeezing the gun. You was think you was dreaming from the slow breathing, the wheezing. You trying to run, no agreement, no disagreement. Believe me, I'm squeezing one. My suggestion is get protection, everyone needs to come.
They calling me Cold Hardy. Maybe I'm Cold Hardy. They calling me Cold Hardy. Maybe I'm Cold Hardy.
Never sell my soul. I got my respect. I got birth control. You used to make my music for the strippers on the pole. You go ahead and hate them about to dig another hole. Everybody walking around with their chest on swole. Until I catch them slipping sliding like an Eskimo. Pour me up a drink, I'm about to swing an episode. It's fucking with these Judases, but boy, you never know. Martin Little Mexico, they about to plug me up. Blue filter walking dead, and why they dug me up. Smoking one, why I'm rolling one, that's double dutch. Looking for a big old bubble butt, double cup, double cup. Yeah, I said it tastes like bubble gum. Burger said it'll hit your ass, it's like a sucker punch. Won't try to lie in front like you don't want you something. Popo knocking on my door like, what the fuck? It just me, myself, and I. Don't need nobody else. Coming down on 9, find me in my double cup. I don't never leave home without my double cup. You looking for a double up and come and fuck with us. I got my double cup. 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 I got smoking super duper. Don't pass me no hookah. I got this here Ruger. Yeah, I bought it for intruders. I just came back from the future. Oh shit, now I'm Looper. Fuck you in your Uber. I'm the driver and the shooter. Pull up in the SUV or on the motor scooter. Unclogging the pipeline, call me Rotor Rooter. Sipping on Kahlua. Hate to do it to you. Treat you like a shish kebab and throw you on the skewer. Coming down on my high like a parachuter. Sarah Taro Farrow Gama out in Chattanooga. Fill me to the brim again in Boston, Massachusetts. Percocets and Pua all way down to Aruba. Drink myself into a stupor. Sure they ass is stupid. I'm in love with double cup like I got shot by Cupid. Double up your situation ain't really shit to it. Double cup for everybody singing, no let's do it. It's just me, myself, and I. Don't need nobody else. Coming down on 9, find me in my double cup. I don't never leave home without my double cup. You looking for a double up and come and fuck with us. I got my double cup. 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 I got
together, baby, yeah. Make a allow it a little more time, a lot of my mind. I need a break. I'm overthinking. I wanna scream, I wanna cry. I know you can make it better, baby, yeah. It's about when I'm with you. Little of me, a little of you. A little bit of us together, baby, yeah. Light up the hookah. Smoke no reefer. I know it's February, but we still got the tree up. Bob Marley vinyl, spinning like the cosmos. Pour another Cosmo. I'ma do what I do. Cranberry liquor. I ain't got no makeup on, 'cause I be chillin'. Baby, I know what you want. Time for, baby, making time for. Boy, you know it's time for. Together, baby, yeah. Make allow it a little more wine, feeling sublime. Oh yeah, baby, you know it's about when I'm with you. Little more love is never enough. Oh yeah, never too much. So light up the hookah. I ain't got no reefer. I know it's February, but we still got the tree up. Bob Marley vinyl, spinning like the cosmos. Pour another Cosmo. I'ma do what I do. Cranberry liquor. I ain't got no makeup on, 'cause I be chillin'. Baby, I know what you want. Time for, baby, making time for. Who you know it's time for.
Pull a scene from out my mind. Pulling pieces out the sky. Pull a scene from out my mind. I'm just living that life, though. Knocking keys
ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. I lock and load in my revival. Like a keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. Just living that life, though. Like a keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. I lock and load in my revival. Like a keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. I start pulling pieces out the sky, pull a scene from out my mind. Get crazy, Scorsese, John Singleton, and Hughes brothers for my line. Roll a Spike Lee joint, about to make a movie, show you how the world truly a pile of poverty. Mold the pottery, a melting pot to be destroyed in confusion. Action, shoot, red dot for the court, and now that dot for the target block. Hit him up, numerous shots, but the fofo is going down. Down on how the homies trained us, down on luck, down on paper, down state, down the haters. Living the way that they say, grandma, mind never raised us, we just living that life though. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. I lock and load in my revival. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. Just living that life though. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. I lock and load in my revival. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. Out here in the jungle, see you alive as soon as your pride, nigga, the absence. In a rock in a hard place where my family raised me. I grew with the gap is, I grew with the back is. Your lifestyle bringing the package, personality in your fabric. Matter over mind, never mind if you got mind enough to maintain a ration. Made of madness, the lifestyle made me grab it. Perspire your pain and passion, aspire, bring them past it. I am the dream you napping. That's cause they made my checks up and away, get at it. Bottom to the top, nigga, basement addict. All I wanna do is rock, nigga, basement addicts. All they wanna do is stop. What? My pace to have it, from silver to plastic on spoon. Soon as my habitat mode, from suburb to city, the pity, the poverty. I just adapted the show to the stars in the mold till I'm all in that. Dollar for the Lord, he ain't calling back. All I wanna do is write what's wrong with that. So I'm marching on with our target on the march, make me song. Just living that life though. Living that life though. Can turn you upon or string you along. The chain of the psycho. Hope you think of what I know. Taking a stride though. And pray with your Bible. This world is taking a dive. He's taking a ride to make it alive. To say that it's fine. Cause we just living that life though. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. I lock and load in my revival. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. Just living that life though. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it. I lock and load in my revival. Like and keep ballin', chain, psycho. Better know it, nigga, better know it.
Body bags everywhere, the hood is in a drought. Tryna see you get in there so we can take them niggas out. Bricks in the book bag, money on the couch. Let them niggas run in here, I bet nobody make it out. There's a reason I should doubt. Through the season, word of mouth. Got a stupid nigga smacked a couple whack without a doubt. Getting money on my route, low key. You know my style. Work what you need, I'm giving fixes to people. On tour my ego, stay away from the Eagles. Hitty got me bolded, taking shots like they free throws. Flop like an eagle, load my talents an eagle. I want my quarterback, so I'm chasing range like an eagle. So here we go, let me talk to the people. Life is like a movie, meaning death is the sequel. Shooting like the Regal, theaters to help you breathe through the future of our people. Hope Elijah can see through. You better open eyes before that martial law rise at your front door. Now 8Ks to your eyes. Really, you a guard snake trying to play the cobra tie. Riding when the grass is so you see the black mamba eyes. Body bags everywhere, the hood is in a drought. Trying to see you get in there so we can take them niggas out. Bricks in the book bag, money on the couch. Let them niggas run in here, I bet nobody make it out.
Swat.
Someone here is mine and I say you. Yeah. Hurry up and make a decision. What say you? Bounce. Bounce on a nigga. Make it get real high like an ounce on a nigga. Young Simba Queen Nala, you should pounce on a nigga.
I just want all her affection. Moving that body so excellent. Killing me soft, turning me on. With you there ain't no more stressing. Displaying to me your true essence. By moving that body with elegance. You got my trust, and think I found love. Let's go and do what's been tested. I just want all her affection, moving that body so excellent, killing me soft, turning me on. With you there ain't no more stressing. Displaying to me your true essence by moving that body with elegance. You got my trust, think I found love. Let's go and do what's been tested.
Let's go and do what's been destined. I ain't gonna lie, you impressing the shit out of me, girl. What do you want is the question. If this is church, it's a lesson. Run everything past the confession. I want you all to myself. I want you and no one else. Damn. Someone here is mine and I say you. Your bestie is looking at me. Bring her to drop. Drop on a nigga. Look, I'm talking everything like the cops on a nigga. You the socket on the pin, blow the socks off a nigga. Boss.
I just want all her affection, moving that body so excellent, killing me soft, turning me on. With you there ain't no more stressing. Displaying to me your true essence by moving that body with elegance. You got my trust, think I found love. Let's go and do what's been tested. I just want all her affection, moving that body so excellent, killing me soft, turning me on. With you there ain't no more stressing. Displaying to me your true essence by moving that body with elegance. You got my trust, think I found love. Let's go and do what's been tested. Shorty, how you move be a blessing. Moving that body so reckless. Emotion is deep, it be endless. You are the one, you're my best.
Shorty, how you move be a blessing. Moving that body so reckless. Emotion is deep, it be endless.
You are the one, you're my best. I just want all her affection, moving that body so excellent, killing me soft, turning me on. With you there ain't no more stressing. Displaying to me your true essence by moving that body with elegance. You got my trust, think I found love. Let's go and do what's been tested. Moving that body so excellent, moving that body so excellent, turning me on, turning me on.
But was with the shits, easily persuaded, first to ride, living to die. Kinda hopeless, sold to the smokers, perk for the poppers, never was sober. Christmas approaching, holiday season, pockets is empty, Timberlands leaning, kinda depressing. He feeling desperate, felt he had to get his daughter a present. Son on a bike, mommy one nights. His name was Mike, this was his life. Always felt the pressure by the ones that was close. Suffering from the oddity of keeping up with the Jones. Oh boy, he looking for a jokes cause his girl wants toys. Mike's mother idolized materials, so we grew up placing worldly items on a pedestal. And now we down to send you to heaven too. For it, he'll commit to that, probably get you hit for that. Pull up, put the mat to see your back, and this is a fact. Plotted on the jewelry store hit. Figured if he run up in there with a fully loaded clip, a black bag that fill up to the tip, ski mask with the hoodie low. He can do it quickly, make it come up and be good to go. Desperation, it can lead you to your deathbed. Niggas down to risk it all and sleep in jail beds. Mike was thinking foolishly, ran up in it stupidly. He can give a fuck about togetherness and unity.
Save me from the start. Save me from the start so I can be free. Save me from the start. Save me from the start. Like a roaring thunder. Like a roaring thunder.
On the pop right out the back room, shotty on him. Aimed at Michael, told him drop it, this your final warning. This was something Michael didn't expect. When you young and full of greed, you'll do the most for a check. The store clerk told the owner, don't shoot though. Looked at Michael's eyes, saw the pain, said I used to be you, bro. We can call the cops, have you charged with armed robbery. But I don't think a prison is the place you ought to be. You ought to be free, you don't really wanna do this. You got your finger on the trigger, you don't wanna pull it. Nigga, you lost in the sauce for real. You letting others' expectations make you rob and steal. Living a life with your mind in the shack
circles. Just another victim to a system that they lie about religion, create holidays and advertising. Got you spending money that you never had, buying things that's only a fad. And you surrounded by ignorance. The ones around you skipping bills to cop the iPhone. They got their babies in designer, but what's funny, they still living in their mom's home. Anything to get a couple comments and likes. Glorifying bullshit that ain't important in life. All they wants and expectations stem from media hype. Switch your focus, young people. Pick a different path. Free your mind from decisions that can end up your last, you know.
Save me from the start. Save me from the start so I can be free. Free. Save me from the start.
That's right.
Save me from the start.
Free yourself.
Like
free your mind. Erase the ignorance
so I can be free.
Free. See, Mike was willing to risk his freedom to put gifts under the tree. That same desperation could have resulted in somebody's life. It's time we pick apart this system, these holidays, these religions, and ask why. It's time to be the outcast. It's time to rebel. See, the world's gonna continue the war. Ain't gonna stop. We're gonna continue to fight, but we gotta overcome the war within ourselves. And win.
I can see what is your problem, my nigga. You know what the difference is. I bring them back to the table. That bread, you would think that I'm making some sandwiches. All that you do is just say you gon' do it. That bullshit you foolish up in the head. If I send all of my niggas to get you, your block will be hot like the tanning bed. All of that nonsense is in your head. You run your mouth cause you with the feds. If you get caught, you gon' need your meds. Here we gon' catch you while you in bed. We in your room with a bunch of shooters, so we'll look like insidious when you dead. Haunted by demons, don't fuck around. Bring your body as soon as we cut your leg. Bitches are liars, but numbers don't lie, so I'm all about my money. You must be stupid if you think you with me. No, I'm not a dummy. Niggas is sick when they smell what I'm cooking. They nose won't be running. Used to be broke as a joke. When you check the punchline, ain't gon' be nothing funny. You could all say what you want, but only God can judge me. Difficult, catch me a body. I wonder if God will love me. Money the root of all evil, so nigga is about the money. Whole lot of bricks on the table when we break it.
Taking all these drugs back for my health. I need that cold in the cold. I need that dope to cold. Pop an Addy and perk just to stay afloat. Sipping hot tech just to cold. Smoking inside it to cold. I need these drugs just to cold. Some call it getting high, I call it coping. Some call it getting high, I call it coping. Hey, I call it coping. Some call it getting high, and I call it coping. Yeah, I'm just coping. Some call it getting high, yeah, I'm just coping. Yeah, I'm just coping. Oh, yeah, I'm just coping. Yeah, I'm just coping. Oh, this dope got me focused. Codeine keep me focused. These drugs have me focused. The streets got me heartless. No matter how hard it gets, I get it regardless. I can't trust the soul like a one-man army. At all times, give it on me. The streets got me heartless. No matter how hard it gets, I get it regardless. I can't trust the soul like a one-man army. At all times, give it on me. Tunnel vision on the cake. Naked wrists like the lady. Sick ain't deal with the fake. Exotic help me meditate. 40 on me, I won't hesitate to take a nigga out just like a dinner date. I still treat my shoe boxes like the bank. Ain't a lick, ain't nothing sweet, this ain't what you think. These drugs got me focused, so sharp like a shank. Pull up that codeine, yeah, I sip on my meds. Tired of these niggas, point me to the bed. You niggas some bitches want me in the fed. Shout out to Bone Crusher, no, I'm never scared. Mechanical pencil for him up with lead. Haters ever try to fuck with my bread. No, it's nothing for me to get you whacked, but I'd rather get this money instead. Oh, yeah, I'm just coping. Yeah, I'm just coping. Oh, this dope got me focused. Codeine keep me focused. These drugs have me focused. The streets got me heartless. No matter how hard it gets, I get it regardless. I can't trust trust the soul, like a one-man army. At all times, give it on me. These streets got me heartless. No matter how hard it gets, I get it regardless. I can't trust the soul, like a one-man army. At all times, give it on me. Got me heartless. No matter how hard it gets, I get it regardless. I can't trust the soul, like a one-man army. At all times, give it on me. The streets got me heartless. No matter how hard it gets, I get it regardless. I can't trust the soul, like a one-man.
We did this shit cause we had to, and I ain't stopping till my mother in that castle. I'm on this bag, I don't know why you mad, boo. Full speed on the gas, they smell a lot when I pass through. Time to run it up with the gang, nigga. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same niggas. My whole team, we ain't playing with you. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same niggas.
Remember I was broke, all that money I was missing it. It's level in its differences, fucking all of these mistresses. It's fish up in the sea, I guess my team gon' be the fishermen. The posture's so militant like Jordan when he dishing it, yeah. I cross them over cause they started doing mixy shit. To ease the pain, I flood the wrist, 340 out the government. Them oppers on that sucker shit, big bird, I had to pluck it, claim my brothers who I'm fucking with for anyone up the 100 clip, yeah. No hesitation, to that bag, yeah, we racing. Mama told me be patient, once you get it, they start hating. Start forming all these relations, reach their hands, I ain't shaking. Bad little bitch, yeah, she shaking. T.O. think we really made it. Out the trench on some army shit. Trap on tilt, supply the strip. And you know we hiring. Put 10K inside the strip like this, my shit, the lion's den. You heard wrong, I'm not your friend. T.O.D. we did it again. Flood to protect us and care my skin. Gang.
We did this shit cause we had to, and I ain't stopping till my mother in that castle. I'm on this bag, I don't know why you mad, boo. Full speed on the gas, they smell a lot when I pass through. Time to run it up with the gang, nigga. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same niggas. My whole team, we ain't playing with you. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same niggas. I can't fuck with you if you out here moving funny style. Running wild, I'm shmoney dancing to that money now. Since a child, I just wanted to make my mother proud. Fell in love with this music, time for me to say my vows. Got a thou and I flipped it back into another thou. Put it all in this movement, grooving through the fucking town. With the gang, it ain't no thing to get 100 rounds. Youngest hungry to get this money and we on the prowl. Yeah, you niggas really not stopping shit. I got no time for the mentions or the gossip shit. They talk about us cause we always been the topic, bitch. Bitches want my phone crazy, stupid, had to block the bitch. Yeah, I'm always here with the same niggas. Loopy T.O.D., yeah, they know the name, nigga. I'm just known for spitting this flame, nigga. No games, nigga, get introduced to this pain, nigga. We did this shit cause we had to, and I ain't stopping till my mother in that castle. I'm on this bag, I don't know why you mad, boo. Full speed on the gas, they smell a lot when I pass through. Time to run it up with the gang, nigga. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same niggas. Facts. My whole team, we ain't playing with you. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same niggas.
I'm cool, calm, collective. This money on my checklist. When you broke out here, you start moving reckless. Niggas gotta respect it. Everything I did, I don't regret it. You only live once, don't forget it. I see myself like Rollo in a Rari, fuck a Tahoe. I'm trying to swerve the potholes. Big hefe like I'm Pablo. Odds up, but the top low. Got cheese like Nacho. Crack your shell, you a taco. I need my money pronto, or I'm OJ in a Bronco. Nigga bag talk, I ain't really with the convo. I'm getting older like where all the time go. December 8th, young nigga was letting off that rondo in these streets like I'm John Doe. And if it ain't about that money, nigga, dead your convo. I'm with the gang, nigga. Keep it 100, they do the same with you. And ever since I was born, I've been the same nigga. You play with me if you want, and I ain't playing with you.
We did this shit cause we had to, and I ain't stopping till my mother in that castle. I'm on this bag, I don't know why you mad, boo. Full speed on the gas, they smell a lot when I pass through. Time to run it up with the gang, nigga. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same niggas.
My whole team, we ain't playing with you. No games, nigga, I'm still here with the same I just wanted more life, less drama and more commas. Make a toast to the game and make sure that we all got us. We did this through the rain, ain't none of y'all gonna stop us. T.O.D. they know the name, and they saying that we the topic, that's gangster.
The new age of hip hop.
Download all Underworld Radio mix CDs. DJ JFK presents at undergroundentertainment.bandcamp.com. That's undergroundentertainment.bandcamp.com. Or you could go to www.underworld.com. Download all our mix CDs and DVDs, merchandise, and whatever. Support the movement, which is Underworld.
They look like it's on the comeback. Mama's doing better, got an appetite back. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak. Keep up with the times, days used to be long. Yeah. Studio recording the same song. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak. Got me out of character, girl, you're powerful. Feeling things that I never felt before. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak.
Yeah, yeah, you know me. Dre be low key. Got yak on me, got pack on me. Spark the street, please. Yeah, life's a blessing. Live, learn lessons. Pain and affection. Sip when we happy, we sip when we stressing. Mind's in detention, stuck with this, blunt with this, loving this. Life will flip up, down. Times this bottle make you smile, times this bottle make you frown. My ace came home from a bid, whole hood came out with them bottles. Time be flying, cause most of us haven't seen homies since high school. We pop these bottles, cause we celebrating. Flip side when I'm off this yak, better not bring confrontation. Flip side, I pop a bottle during conversation. Flip side, I sip this yak just for some toleration. Shit I be facing, shit I be seeing, knowing the facts. I cannot hide from the truth, there ain't no options for that. And I be knowing I got bills to pay, but I'm behind my way to cope with it's the sip away. These thoughts all on my mind. Sit there, hit the pussy, make my dick pressure her spine. Ran into some money, now my bank looking alright. We sip yak cause we fly. I overthink when I'm alone, may sip and cry. Sometimes this liquor be having me speak my mind. I'm in my feelings, wondering if my cousin's fine. Hope she's alright.
Money look like it's on the comeback. Mama's doing better, got an appetite back. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak. Keep up with the times, days used to be long. Studio recording the same song. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak. Got me out of character, girl, you're powerful. Feeling things that I never felt before. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak.
Surgery after surgery, the same old thing. Hospital visits, doctors, and them same IVs. Cousin, I know you suffer from this vicious disease. Pain and the aches enough to leave you weak in your knees. Trust me, it hurts to think of close ones. Time's ticking. Keep them in good spirits. Let them know that you with them. Every day I be wishing that I had all the answers. Choice for all of these poisons. Choice for all of these cancers. You know when blood cells have a hook on them, they say it trims your life expectancy. Your days are slim. But not my cousin, she's strong. I can't imagine my auntie watching her child suffer. Look through the eyes of these fathers, look through the lens of these mothers, enough to let that yak trip. Feel these emotions and gravitate towards the sadness. But yo, my cousin is strong. We gon' pour it up and keep moving on. You built to last, ain't going nowhere. You gon' prove Dr. wrong. So trust me, family, ain't no need to cry. Let's try together and just keep our heads up to the sky. I drink and toast to that, cause lately I've been feeling foul. Chasing this Henny with crown, my liver's probably about to drown. I lost a brother-in-law. His father started a fund to honor his name. I never had the ill to ask him how he dealt with the pain. I wasn't there for the visits. I only saw all the smiles. It's hard to fathom with the vision of him losing his child.
He look like it's on the comeback. Mama's doing better, got her appetite back. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak. Keep up with the times, days used to be long. Studio recording the same song. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak. Got me out of character, girl, you're powerful. Feeling things that I never felt before. I'll be sipping yak, sipping yak, sipping yak.
We built the last.
You wanna be when you grow up. That put a target on me. I should've kept my mouth shut. To know your dreams and aspirations, get them a one up. To meet you at the crossroads, they playing this out from the jump. Stock market, your social, that red ink is your banking number. To cash out is to be put behind doors and taking lumber. Working for them or thrown in prison where we mistake each other as inferior. Why they hope and pray that we shank each other. The border's on our back, all we gotta do is stand up. Economic slavery put us in debt with our hands cuffed. Though I still became what I raised my hand for. It's trauma on my mental and the fight gon' be lifelong. Look into my mind, I'm traumatized. Look into my home, I'm traumatized. Look at how I move, I'm traumatized. Look at how I act around you. I'm traumatized. Coming up, I always looked at family as superheroes. The blood that we shed is what helped us recoup from zero. My mother said when I pass on, stay close with your brothers. Keep it love, no sibling rivalry, trying to hurt each other. But soon out of sight, out of mind, had took its toll. I turned a blind eye to certain addictions. When it's cold, it cuts straight to the bone. In the process, you lose your soul, leaving invisible tears on a face that's growing old. To me, life as I knew it came to a standstill. I feel like a clean shirt that got thrown in the landfill. Though I still became what I raised my hand for. It's trauma on my mental and the fight gon' be lifelong. Look into my mind, I'm traumatized. Look into my home, I'm traumatized. Look at how I move, I'm traumatized. Look at how I act around you, I'm traumatized.
Check on my sneakers, so it was nice to meet ya. Charging 2 bands for a feature, and now the price going up. O.stylez level up, niggas ain't fuck with us. But the D rolling up, now I'm just in for the double. And the beat bumping some gun up, rocking out heavy metal. While I'm just loading the gun up, niggas wish that they was us. AMG super speed, yeah, different from the D's. Niggas can't fuck with me. Bitch telling me to eat her. Bitch, you crazy and stupid or something. Hit it once, I'ma leave her. Spin a band on my sneaker, spin a band on my sneakers. Spend 12 on the mirrors. Tell a bitch get from me. Tell a bitch I don't need her. Bitch telling me to eat her. Bitch, you crazy and stupid or something. Hit it once, I'ma leave her. Spin a band on my sneaker, spin a band on my sneakers. Spend 12 on the mirrors. Tell a bitch get from me. Tell a bitch I don't need her. Always been different designer. Back in the day with the Prada. Now I'm just rocking Da Vinci. The off-white drippy is in me. Now I'm just rocking the fly shit. The easy found is so sloppy. You know that if I come out, I got it. You know if I come out, I got it. 10K in my pocket. If I like it, I cop it. Super speed in the car. AMG full of bras. I don't need none of y'all. Clip you off, drop you off. Bitch telling me to lead her. Stupid bitch, I don't need ya. Bitch telling me to eat her. Bitch, you crazy and stupid as son. Hit it once, I'ma leave her. Spin a band on my sneaker. Spin a band on my sneakers. Spend 12 on the mirrors. Tell a bitch, get from me. Tell a bitch, I don't need her. Bitch telling me to eat her. Bitch, you crazy and stupid as son. Hit it once, I'ma leave her. Spin a band on my sneaker. Spin a band on my sneakers. Spend 12 on the mirrors. Tell a bitch, get from me. Tell a bitch, I don't need her.
I love her like she loving me. She know I miss her like she missing me. The way we love is uncontrollably. We overthinking love through energy. 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 Them vibrations that you bring to me. She know I love her like she loving me. She know I miss her like she missing me. The way we love is uncontrollably. We overthinking love through energy. 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 The vibrations that you bring to me. I feelin' what we feelin' for. I'm reaching up for a star. Sitting on the moon, looking over the Pluto. That's where you go. But baby, let me tell you something. No reason fake, no reason front. All I want is keep it 100. I love her like she love me and she want it. She know I love her like she loving me. She know I'm missing like she missing me. The way we love is uncontrollably. We overthinking love through energy. 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 The vibrations that you bring to me. She know I love her like she loving me. Right by my side is where she wants to be. Don't make me look or baby, take a peek. Cause guarantee you won't the one to see. Everything I got is waiting for. I got for you, baby, I'll give you more. And anything you want, I'll break it off. Half and never take a loss. We play a team and that's on everything. You know whatever, I'll forever bring. I get that money, I'll forever save. We love each other and it stays the same. Now tell me what's the game? Never hurt you, never bring you pain. She know I love her like she loving me. She know I miss her like she missing me. The way we love is uncontrollably. We overthinking love through energy. 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 Them vibrations that you bring to me. She know I love her like she loving me. She know I'm missing like she missing me. The way we love is uncontrollably. We overthinking love through energy. We overthinking love through energy. We overthinking love through energy.
We been sober, yeah. I'm barely ever sober, yeah. I swear I'm never sober, yeah. I'm hardly ever sober. Open up my hand with the best friend. Nasty with the pen. Tripping after 10. We got what you need, no. What you need, figured out what you need, no. What you need, I got what you need, no. What you need, gotta fix for all your needs, no. All your needs, yeah. Feel like I'm the motherfucking man. Damn, feel like I just caught another win. Damn, came back and I'm here with this. Bitches throwing pussy like this shit again. This finna get ugly like a blind date. Yeah, my pocket's fat like a blind date. Y'all late, new to this shit, but I move like an old head. Call old girl so she can give me more.